Greetings, exiles. A new journey. This time with Chieftain and Corrupting Cry. I think I can make something fun and interesting. As always, I start from scratch. That's what I love. In my previous journeys, I swapped to my main skill quite late, after the first Void Stones. But this time I want to start using Corrupting Cry as early as possible. And that will be at level 49. I have planned the initial skill tree, and that's when we will be able to take all the main skill nodes. Also, that's when we get access to this unique shield, which gives WarCry cooldown recovery rate. A very important stat for this build. Well, let's go. Finally, fast respec. And important purchases. God bless these good people who do 1C trade. Some of you are probably wondering why I don't use asynchronous trading. But it's very simple, I forgot that gold is a thing. And I spent it on respec, so I couldn't buy items. A big mistake, but the best gaming community saved me. Well, let's take a look at my starting build. Overall, it's pretty good, and I expected the result to be worse because Corrupting Cry requires some gear. While you're enjoying campaign gameplay, let's talk about Corrupting Cry support. What it is and how it works. It's a support gem. Corrupting Cry applies 4 stacks of corrupted blood on nearby enemies when you WarCry. Up to 10 stacks. Also, corrupted blood debuff duration refreshes when a stack is gained. So I just run around using WarCry and everything around me gradually dies. Corrupting Cry scales very well from levels. But it's a support gem, not a skill gem. So plus level to spell gems doesn't work on it. But plus level to socketed gems does work. That's why I bought this unique helmet. That's probably all the important information you need to know right now. In the meantime, I killed the final boss of the campaign. Now we can move on to the maps and the Atlas progression. The Chieftain's explosions make this build very pleasant and comfy. So far, so good. But it's time for the first upgrades. New weapon. Fractured base. Essences. And benchcraft. Nice. Big DPS boost. First big sale. Kind of. New corrupted helmet for more levels for my Corrupting Cry. And Corrupting Cry level 21. Nice amulet. And rings. And a cluster with mob mentality. Now let's talk about why I chose the Chieftain and how I plan to use this shield. In addition to giving us WarCry cooldown recovery rate, it can trigger a socketed WarCry skills. As you all know, WarCrys not only boost attacks but also give useful buffs. And that's exactly what I'm going to scale. This node gives us increased buff effect and infinity power. So WarCry buffs will always have their full effect. In the shield, I'll use Ancestral Cry for 5 maximum elemental resistances, Seismic Cry for more armor, and Intimidating Cry for 40% movement speed. I also have Enduring Cry for life regeneration and endurance charges in my build. In combination with mob mentality and endurance charges on kill, I will constantly receive endurance charges and activate WarCry buffs from my shield. With some duration, I will be permanently under these effects, which is very powerful, especially in the early game. And most importantly, I don't need to press many buttons because most of the WarCry buffs are automated. I use General's Cry for Corrupting Cry, and it's basically my main skill for dealing damage. I also use Enduring Cry from time to time to get life regeneration and endurance charges for my shield. But this shield has a drawback. You lose all endurance charges when you reach maximum endurance charges. This is very bad because endurance charges are a good defensive layer. I solved this problem this way. In my build, the maximum endurance charges is 4 and the minimum endurance charges is 3. So I'll always have at least 3 endurance charges. Plus, with this setup, I only need to get 1 endurance charge to activate my shield, so the build is pretty consistent. This run graft further increases the uptime for our buffs, and even in boss fights, our buffs will always be active. I always wanted to try a build that utilizes WarCry's buffs. But in most cases, it was piano gameplay, and that always stopped me. But here, I was able to automate it all, and we have good synergy with my main skill. That was a lot of yapping, and I hope I didn't bore you, but I tried to briefly explain the main idea of this build, and now we can move on to pure gameplay and tinks. By the way, this is the first tink on this journey. Now it's time to get our first void stones. And here I would like to show another interesting feature. In this build, I use a graft with Seize the Flesh, which creates spikes every time we use WarCry and deals a lot of damage. But to activate them, we need to use an exerted attack. However, since I have an intimidating cry in my shield, which is constantly activated and which exerted my shield charge because it is an attack, I can activate these spikes simply by using shield charge. And as you can see for yourself, Seize the Flesh deals a lot of damage and is a good DPS boost in boss fights. To be honest, when I was planning this build, I didn't think about this interaction, but in the end, everything turned out even better than I thought. Well, the first 2 void stones are mine, and I can continue this journey. Interesting gloves, let's try to fix them. No way. An unexpected upgrade, but a pleasant one. My starting atlas, which I will use to earn currency. Syndicate and Heist. Heist is free money and a no-brainer choice. But Syndicate may surprise you because it's not the most popular mechanic. But I believe in it, so I decided to give it a chance. Unfortunately, Gravicious is dead, and no more cool tinks from him. But on the other hand, I don't have to think about the connections between Syndicate members. I'll just fill the safe house with a level 3 leader as quickly as possible. Let's see what I ended up with. There were already a lot of tinks, and only now I found my first divine orb. 100% Poverty League. I also used 3 of these scarabs, and in combination with the Syndicate and Glacier map, we have a lot of unique monsters that could potentially give good loot. But overall, nothing special. And the payday? Very good. Now I have currency for new upgrades, so I can go shopping. I'll start with Elegant Hubris with Caspiro. First of all, we need this timeless jewel for supreme ostentation so we don't have to worry about attributes. This copy also gives us mana reservation and damage. Tattoo for WarCry cooldown. Since we don't need attributes now, I can use many of these tattoos. Now our cooldown is 0.89 seconds. And later it will be even less. Large cluster. And a new medium cluster. It's not cheap, but it's worth it. New body armor. Belt. And the Watcher's Eye with Pride. It was a good shopping session, and we can continue. I need to finish my Atlas and get the last Void Stones. Nice. Divine Orb from Malkuin. Classic. And some boss fights. It wasn't very difficult, especially with Seize the Flesh. This skill is carry. Okay, it's time. The main purchase. The best upgrade for this build. Forbidden Shako with Corrupting Cry level 35. As I said earlier, Corrupting Cry support scales very well with level, and this unique helmet is the only way to get high-level Corrupting Cry. You can also buy something simpler and cheaper, but it will still be very powerful. With my new helmet, my DPS increased from 1.8 million to 5.5 million. Pretty crazy, not gonna lie. That is why the Forbidden Shako is a key item for this build and a high priority purchase. And as you could see for yourself, I could have bought it much earlier, but I decided not to and try the build without it. A stress test, so to speak. In most cases, this helmet is cheap because no one needs it, as Corrupting Cry is a very niche build and few people know about it. But everything can change when some YouTuber makes a video about this build, then the price of Shako will change significantly. But this is a purely hypothetical situation because no one will make a video about such a bad build, right? Anyway, let's test our new purchases. Oh yes, that's much better. Also, I didn't use Seize the Flesh in this battle to see the pure DPS. Cool. A few more purchases. Unnatural Instinct. Wait a minute. What's going on here? I'm sure it's a magic find enjoyer and not a player who is abusing a bug. Right, GGG? And the Light of Meaning. Wow, in this league, this jewel with physical damage is quite expensive. Damn. But in any case, it's a very strong combination. I think that's enough shopping because I'm out of currency, so it's time to get back to the maps. New Atlas. Harbingers and Beyond. To be honest, Harbingers aren't very profitable in this league. But Harbingers plus Beyond is a very good combination for experience, and I need to level up this character. So I thought, why not? But first, I'll open the last slot for the map device. Now we can begin. As an alternative to this strategy for gaining experience, you can consider the Abyss, which is probably better. But the Abyss means zero loot and annoying monsters, so it's a 100% skip for me. Level 97 and I am done with this strategy. Pretty modest results. But on the other hand, it's all expected because it's a strategy about experience, a bunch of currency, and lucky drops. And that's what I got in the end, so I'm not complaining. New upgrades. Enlighten level 3. Purity of Fire. Defiance of Destiny for big defense. Also, I need new jewels. Let's craft them. First, I need a Fractured Base. And Harvest Juice. Now Harvest Life Reforge. Wow, that was very fast. Maximum Life and Fire Resistance. Just what I need. One more. Only 1%, but we can fix that. Cool. You can also use this trick with maximum lightning or cold resistance to turn it into maximum fire resistance. Like this. And the last jewel. With Purity of Fire and this Chieftain node, all my maximum elemental resistances are now 90%. One more large cluster so I have sockets for my new gems. New graft with Heart of Flame with duration and cooldown recovery rate. Awakened gems for more damage. New belt with chaos resistance, life, and shock avoidance. With Storm Shroud. And this Abyss Jewel I have ailments immunity. I also need a new weapon. I'll start with a high-level fractured base. Essences. Tier 1 damage over time. Perfect. And benchcraft. Before going to bed, I did a 30-minute crafting session. And the next day, sweet divine orbs were waiting for me. I also need this unique armor and a corrupted shield. And of course, new rings. And the last upgrade. Gloves. And crafting again. Not bad. Low-level lightning resistance, but I don't need resistance, so it doesn't matter. Holy slam. 8 armor. Damn, friction is real. Let's see what I ended up with. 6 million DPS. I understand that in today's reality, where we are used to measuring damage in hundreds of millions, because if your build kills an uber boss in more than 1 second, it's a cringe. But nevertheless, I tested this build and this damage is enough for us. Firstly, we have Chieftain's explosions, which make map clearing very enjoyable and you won't feel any problems. Secondly, we have the Seize the Flesh skill, which adds several million damage in boss battles. As for defense, it's not bad overall. The only thing is that max physical damage is low. But I think players overestimate this parameter, and I don't plan on tanking Shaper's Slam every second. In addition, we have Defiance of Destiny, which is a very strong layer of defense that is not shown in PoB. The same goes for Heart of Flame. As you can see for yourself, we have 90% uptime for this skill. And if you spend some extra currency, it will definitely be 100%. So our defense is better than it looks in PoB. But enough yapping, let's test the build in real fights. My favorite target dummy. Overall, we don't have any particular problems in this battle. Especially if you use the best defense in the game, just dodge all attacks. But if you have a skill issue, like me, then you have even more ultimate defense at your disposal. 6 portals. Nice and easy. The best way to spend 5 divine orbs. And 1 more fight. And again, nothing special, just a build I've wanted to try for a long time and wanted to play with. Nothing more, nothing less. Also, I tested this build with a Divination Scarab of Plenty. It's a pretty popular strategy, but these books are very annoying. No problem for a crying man. I also decided to try the ultimatum. Very easy mechanics for us. And some T17 maps. Well, what's next? In fact, there are many improvements that can be made, but there are some problems here. The first is that we are entering the territory of very high prices, and I would like the final version of the build to be more affordable. Also, if we want to further scale the damage, I will have to give up the unique shield and possibly change the ascendancy because I will no longer use WarCries, and the node with maximum resistance is useless with Mageblood. And at the end, it will be a completely different build. So I decided to leave everything as it is and end with my vision and how I would like to see the Corrupting Cry build. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. As always, I would be very grateful for your likes and subscription. Bye everyone, and see you in the new video.